Hello and welcome to Restoring Our American Republic. I'm Chuck Benoit with the nature of things, where we are realigning God, government, and natural law so that we might restore our American Republic. Now, if you were to ask our founding father, John Adams, what the difference was between a politician and a statesman, he would basically say, fear of the Lord. He would define a politician as one who would compromise principles and a statesman as one who wouldn't. I've called out many in the Republican Party on this very point. Primarily, nobody even understands the principles of republicanism, let alone stand by them in their legislation. Now, fear of the Lord does seem a bit fundamentalist, but it's important to understand what this phrase actually means. It really isn't God that we must fear, but his justice. Those of us who have come to faith in the completed work of Jesus have little to fear when it comes to justice as it relates to our salvation. Fear for us is in the rewards or lack thereof as they relate to eternity. The idea of trading immediate gratification for loss of eternal rewards is a constant battle that we do have, but most of us fight that battle at one level or another. But now step into a lifestyle of trading immediate gratification by ignoring your fiduciary responsibilities to your constituents for re-election contributions or even for future benefits after your time in office, to establish your productive lifetime in the trading off of principle for personal gain. Your productive lifetime. Is it really worth it? The principles of republicanism fit hand in glove in Christian morality and our inalienable rights, and I would suggest they are principles worth considering in all of our legislation. And those politicians who are so powerful as to demand other legislators vote against their constituents have much more to lose. But I would remind those legislators who are being leaned on that in the book of Revelation, the first group that God throws into the lake of fire that lasts in eternal death are cowards. Not murderers, not rapists, cowards. You can check that out on Revelation 21, verse 8. So with that off my chest, welcome, Mr. Levine. Mike Levine, how are you this morning?
Oh, I don't know, Chuck, man. You got me sitting at the edge of my seat here with that intro.
Yeah, yeah.
Chuck, I've been called a lot of things, but I don't think I've been called a coward lately.
No, I would not put you in that by any means. By any means, Mike.
Oh,
You
very
you
interesting.
managed to
Yeah.
speak your mind, that's for sure, and nobody pulling your strings.
Well, thanks for the support there, Chuck.
Super,
Makes me
super.
feel good.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
let's start off with some breaking news. This morning,
Yeah, how about that? Yeah,
South
go
Lake
ahead.
Chamber of Commerce voted unanimously to ask for the repeal of SB 180. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that, Mike?
Yeah, it's a really interesting, I've been chatting with the South Lake Chamber of Commerce really over the last let's see, year, 15 months or so about my membership there and my role at the South Lake Chamber of Commerce because I've been very non-participatory for a very long time. And I had a personal one-on-one meeting with the membership director. And then I met with David Colby, who's the CEO. And out of those conversations came the point that I'm really the only person, and that well, the point is that the legislative delegation that represents us in Tallahassee is inconsistent with the political priorities of the municipalities that the South Lake Chamber of Commerce supports. So I brought it to their attention. I said, you do understand that I'm like the only one in 2024, probably in the whole state of Florida, that made government overreach into local government business my tip of the spear campaign issue, right? And from that, I found myself um, gladly and joyfully appointed to the South Lake Chamber Public Policy Committee, and my first meeting was this morning, beginning at 8 o'clock. And the mayor of Groveland, Chef Keogh, came in with his legislative priorities for the 2026 legislative sessions. And one of those priorities was the repeal of SB 180. And then the brilliant scholar, practical, hands-on business manager, entrepreneur, Clint Pownall, who is always outspoken, smart, on point, and in my opinion, correct, made the motion. He said, let's just get that on the table for the mayor. And he made the motion for the Public Policy Committee, the South Lake Chamber, to request the repeal of SB 180 from our legislative delegation. And of course, me, in my first meeting with this group, I let that simmer for a second, and the room was silent. So it didn't take too long before I chimed in and seconded the motion.
There you go.
And then, of course, we had some debate about it, or there really was no debate. So Clint, as a powerful entrepreneur, statesman that he is, asked the committee, he said, please, if someone opposes this committee requesting the repeal of SB 180, please give us your rationale. We want to hear it. And heard none.
There you go. There you go.
So therefore, we took the vote after we kind of beat it up a little bit and said, what are we actually calling for? And we kind of redefined what we were calling for. And we took the vote, and there were no nay votes, Chuck.
There you
So
go.
the motion passed unanimously to repeal SB 180 coming out of the South Lake Chamber of Commerce.
So let me just give a quick blurb on that. SB 180 focused on emergency management that limits local government control over land use regulations following a hurricane. It restricts the ability to impose building moratoriums or new impact fees, with developers challenging local regulations under this new law. So that's just a little bit of a reminder in case anyone's not figuring out what that SB 180
Long story
is.
short, Chuck, it's the overreach of the state government into local government's business.
There you go. There you go. So very exciting, Mike, and thank you for jumping on board that committee and making things happen like you always do. So
I can't really take credit for that. I was a supporting role. I played a
supporting role, that's
supporting
good.
role.
I get it. But it wouldn't have gone anywhere without a second, Mike. So
That's true. And I did argue a few points in favor of the motion.
There you go. There you go. Well, we were talking about the Iranian war and a few of the impacts on that. We didn't quite get through our list. I think we might have begun to talk about the removal of key Russian allies as it affects, Ukraine. I heard somewhere, whether it was on Fox News or something, someone that might have said something that, Putin has already called President Trump and to ask about maybe settling the war in the Ukraine. Now, that just seemed like it came out of nowhere, so I don't think I dreamed it, but I don't know if you heard anything about that or if there was anything else you wanted to say about Russia and its allies.
That's the first I'm hearing about it, Chuck. So I don't have much to say about it, but it's not a surprise. I mean, Iran was a major supporter of Russia and China. So when you start taking the oil production out of Iran, even though, of course, Russia, is a major oil producer, exporter, it's got to put a lot of pressure on Russia. So what you're saying to me doesn't surprise me. Okay, but I haven't heard that already, and I don't know the details behind it. So I'm not going to have a lot to say about that, but I'm as other than to say that I'm not surprised. But I'm telling you something. This president, and we have to. I'm going to qualify my comment by saying, provided that all continues to go well, but so far it's going exceedingly well. Um, but as I've told people many times, particularly over the last couple of years, as I was running for the Florida House seat, that particularly Trumpian politics is multi-dimensional chess, and Donald Trump plays it very well so far. And I am very enamored by his execution of the role of the President of the United States. And God bless Donald Trump. God bless the great America, America first, and peace and prosperity will be abundant in the world if this goes the way it looks like it's going, Chuck.
It could go very, very well. But the main thing that we wanted to kind of work our way down to, and we kind of knew it would take a couple of sessions to get there, um, is that this war could very well focus American adversaries on the domestic USA. Now we know there can be sleeper cells, et cetera, out there, but we're far more concerned about the election processes in 2026 and how they may possibly be uh, uh, the focus of international issues that we feel affected 2020 elections, and we have some people that we want to talk about, um, and um, and it really boils around election integrity and how it affects us here in 2026. Would you like to get us started off? We were wanting to
I
talk
would.
about Bernie Jacques' 2024 legislation, HB 359. Do we want to start there?
No.
Okay.
Where we want to start is that um, in today's world, kinetic warfare is the last resort. And the nations of the world prefer other forms of warfare to kinetic warfare. So the point is that our adversaries are looking and strategizing, again, playing multidimensional chess. How can we bring America to her knees at this moment in time? Now, to get a little closer to your tee up of this conversation, we go back to Italy Gate, right, Chuck?
We can do that.
And, that was totally swept under the rug after the 2020 election, that the possibility that voting machines in the United States could have uploaded voter rolls and voting records real time to satellites in Frankfurt, Germany, and in Spain. And they would have used the Leonardo intelligence agency, the Italian Leonardo intelligence agency satellites to transmit the voter rolls into various different servers around the world. And then those voter rolls would be manipulated and downloaded back into the servers here in the United States. And all of that was swept under the rug, went away as if it never occurred, or if even it was even stricken as a conspiracy theory. You didn't even get a lot of, and you know why, Chuck? Because they knew if we talked about it, we'd prove it. So that just whole conversation got completely killed. It was even in um, even in investigative journalist reporting, the whole Italy Gate thing just kind of went silent. But you know what, Chuck? It's not silent anymore. Okay? I'm seeing a lot of discussion about Italy Gate all over the internet, on X, places like that. And when you start seeing this stuff bantered around on X, everybody in the world is watching it. this is real. I mean, this is a real possibility. So the question becomes, when you take a look at Italy Gate, and then you look at the implications in this, really, Chuck, the precipice of World War III is where we are. And when you take the potential of foreign countries to literally manipulate voter counts in American elections, that is the Achilles heel to bringing down America if we allow it to go on and continue. And this is a hot, again, it's going to be hotter next week than it is today, but it's something that the Trump administration is looking at, and the Democrats are looking at it. So the question really becomes, Chuck, when you go back to the State of the Union speech, and Donald Trump said, all of those of you in this assembly today who believe that the mission, the goal of the American government is to support American citizens, not illegal immigrants or non-citizens, please stand. And of course, the Republicans stood and the Democrats didn't, which means that the Democrats believe that illegals or non-citizens are as deserving of the resources of the American government than American citizens are. Now, I'm thinking, Chuck, I don't care what your political stripes are. If you're Johnny Lunchbucket out there, you probably believe that the American government's first priority should be her citizens, not her non-citizens. Well, now we're in a situation where we're looking at election reform. And if there's a possibility out there or not, just as a preventative measure, hand counting paper ballots in the precincts is the way to protect America from foreign interference in our elections, Chuck. And that's where we're at. So, of course, I have to give a shout out to my friend Maria Zack, who is the tip of the spear today on Italy Gate. And I haven't heard from Maria in the last couple of days. So when we get off this call, I'm going to send her out a little love, a little text message telling her that I know she's up to her eyeballs in interviews with the FBI, the Department of Justice, Tulsi Gabbard with the Department of National Intelligence, and all of that. Maria is in the middle of it. And ladies and gentlemen, if you want to learn more about Maria, go back to our previous recording when Maria was on with us for the duration of our show, which, again, watch it. It's worth watching. But so Maria Zack is in the middle of all this. Okay. And of course, you have Sidney Powell, Lynn Wood, people like that who also were involved in the whole election fraud thing. So that's the point that we're making today, Chuck. You and I are making the point that as a matter of national security, the integrity of those voting machines must come under scrutiny. And for me personally, somebody who just wants to solve the problem, hand counting paper ballots in the precincts and voter ID, proof of citizenship to vote, is what is required to protect America today from the clear and present danger of foreign interference in our elections, Chuck.
Yeah, so moving on from Maria, we also wanted to talk about Brian T. Kennedy, president of American Strategy Group and a senior fellow on the board and board member of the Claremont Institute. Would you like to talk about him a little bit and what his suggestions are?
Well, he just basically was on Bannon's War Room and made that point that I just laid out for you. But the amazing thing about Brian Kennedy and people like him, Frank Gaffney, Brian Kennedy, people like that, is that these are think tankers. Okay, these guys, all they do is study. And as he was making that point, I just thought it'd be good for me to get a better understanding of exactly who this Brian Kennedy guy is. And just so you know, Charlie Kirk, I believe in 2021, Charlie Kirk attended the Claremont Institute, and our own Anthony Sabatini was in Charlie Kirk's class. at Claremont. And Claremont is one of the most prestigious think tanks on the conservative side in our country. So, and then Brian Kennedy was the chairman of Claremont Institute between, I think, 2001 and 2013. So this guy is a highly regarded scholar who really brought it to my attention through Bannon's War Room about the not I've already known, all of us who have been um, all of us who believe that the 2020 election was stolen have been working on this concept. Particularly those of us who don't trust machines, which is almost everyone who's on our side of this argument. But Brian Kennedy brought it to the forefront, which really gave it to me. The reason we're talking about it is because he gives it so much credibility, Chuck.
There you go. And um, you mentioned here that Brian T. Kennedy reports that President Trump must declare a state of emergency to protect the United States against foreign manipulation of the 2026 elections as soon as possible. Time is of the essence. Now, obviously, President Trump has talked about this over and over and over again. What can President Trump do to move these things forward? Does he need an
He needs to
executive
declare
order?
a state of emergency. He needs to declare a state of emergency is what he needs to do. But keep in mind, and I don't know if Donald Trump sees it the same way I do, but this is not a general election issue. This is a primary election issue. Okay. And when you start, I've been watching some reporting on these voting machines, Chuck, and I've run for office twice. I ran for a county commission seat in 2016, and I ran for the Florida House in 2024. And, I'm skeptical about whether the votes in my races were counted properly and all of the various different processes were followed down. I don't think there's a lot I can do about it. But I do believe we're going to find out that our voting systems have been manipulated for a lot longer than just 2020, Chuck. And whatever, call me bitter, call me, spoiled milk, whatever you want to say. But this is why the establishment doesn't like people like you and me, Chuck, because we're willing to shed light on the things that go on behind the scenes and the possibilities. And if the idea is never presented, then it's never fully researched and it never gets resolved. And today we're in a situation where other countries it's highly beneficial for other countries to impact the outcome of our elections. And the best way to shield us against the infiltration of foreign countries in our elections is to vote on paper ballots, hand counted in the precincts, proof of citizenship, no machines, Chuck. That is the idea.
Yeah, and obviously, we've talked about several election integrity bills that are moving through the House, and none of them are looking in that direction. And as a matter of fact, we're talking about bills establishing a completely different set of machines that are going to test the results of the original machines, and so we're like duplicating machine over machine over machine, and we're not really getting down to what we the people genuinely want, and that is one vote for one duly noted citizen, a genuine citizen, one vote on paper, counted at the precinct level, so each and every precinct knows that the votes that were passed in their precinct are valid and accurate.
And then you can get into Bernie Jock's HB 359, which was presented to the Florida legislature in 2024, which just simply says that supervisors of elections in the counties have the option of hand counting paper ballots in the precincts if they want to. They can use it as a backup test to hold the machines accountable. Lots of flexibility for the supervisors of elections. I personally believe that the supervisors of elections in the counties should be the point person on all of this voter registration, how the elections are held. They can do it any way they want. You know, you know, they are responsible for the processes of the elections in their own counties, and the supervisor of elections should have a lot of input as to how the election is managed in their county. Point number one, right? And then the second part becomes that, first of all, I mean, if we did that, we wouldn't have voting machines. So we wouldn't have to worry about whether the hardware, whether the software or the firmware or any of the other components of the voting machines are made in foreign countries. And Bernie Jacques HB 359 in 2024 prohibited voting machines from having hardware, software, firmware, etc. that is, and computer chips, Chuck, produced in foreign countries. And there's lots of reporting going on right now since we struck Iran about the potential for altering election outcomes through the simple computer chips that are embedded in these voting machines, Chuck. So this is where the war in Iran is heightening the importance of our election processes as a matter of national security in the United States. And Bernie Jacques tried to help us with this in 2024 and was shut down by the legislative leadership and the executive branch. I'm just going to throw Cord Bird under the bus because our Secretary of State, whether he's working under the government, the governor's direction, which of course he is, the Secretary of State serves at the pleasure of the governor. So the executive branch of our Florida legislature doesn't want to be on top of this issue either, Chuck Benoit.
Yeah, well, there's enough reason why we need to be a little bit more proactive in this particular election. Of course, we need to be this proactive in all of our elections, but this is a big one because if President Trump is shut down, if his administration is shut down here midterm, um, there's a lot of issues that our America is going to have to be faced, and the world is going to have to face for a long time. So I feel like all stops need to be all holes barred kind of thing. We need to go after this, and hand counting paper ballots at the precinct level, it can't get any more secure than that. There's
This is an existential threat to our country, Chuck.
existential. And the other thing is that the war has kind of altered our relationship with a number of a number of nations who we've felt like have been very close to us in the past. For instance, Great Britain. It's just interesting to me to note that just as President Trump begins to bring stabilization to the shipping lanes over there, that the Lloyd's of London all of a sudden decided to stop insuring the oil tankers going through the Strait of Hormuz. It just seems like it kind of goes hand in hand with Britain's unwillingness to be a part of the war effort in Iran, and does strike at the foundations of our relationship with Great Britain.
Well, whether the government of Great Britain had anything to do with Lloyd's of London canceling their reinsurance against those tankers, that's a different story. I don't know that's true. I think that's just an actuarial risk that the insurance company, Lloyd's and others, just don't want to take, and that's understandable. If you're insuring the vessels and their cargo, which is billions of dollars each one. The vessel itself is I don't have a hard number for what it costs, but those tankers are very expensive. And then when you load on that very expensive cargo onto those tankers, that is a massive actuarial risk in a war zone, Chuck. So I don't have any heartburn about that. I think it's kind of entertaining to realize that China started pressuring Iran to open the Strait of Hormuz when in fact Iran didn't close it. The reason the Strait of Hormuz is closed is because the insurance companies who write the reinsurance for those tankers is withdrawn coverage. So this is a private sector uh, issue, not a governmental issue, which I find totally entertaining and fascinating. So that these governments just can't push each other around because you know, certainly billionaire companies that are writing these insurances are actually the ones who are affecting the prevention of oil tankers flowing through the Strait of Hormuz. It's not a governmental action that did that. It's a private sector um, action that caused that to happen, Chuck.
Yeah, I just think it's kind of interesting because what we've done is totally annihilated Iran and taken the entire threat out of the equation. But that's just my opinion. So we
But
are, quite
let me go
frankly,
another step further. Let me take it another step further, right? If China has real heartburn about that, then they should provide the insurance.
yeah, well, President Trump provided the insurance. We're insuring them for now. So, another revenue stream that
Okay.
President Trump has created for us. Just amazing how things go like that. Well, again, Mr. Levine,
There
we
you
are
go.
out of time, so I'm going to give you a final wrap
Oh
up.
my goodness.
Go for it.
Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, it is, I mean, we cannot overstate the seriousness of what's going on in the world, but I have to tell you something. It really makes me giggle when China is beholden to global insurance companies for oil out of Iran. I think that's pretty entertaining stuff. So, but I'm really proud. It's really interesting for me personally, Chuck, going back to how we started this broadcast, that the state of Florida is becoming so autocratic that they don't get along with the Chamber of Commerce. I think that's pretty fascinating stuff as well. So, from a global scale, the national scale with the elections and everything, and of course, at the state level with land use development, our own election processes here in the state of Florida, and then all that's going on in the world, this is a really entertaining time to be alive if you have no fear, Chuck.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Levine. And thank you all again for tuning into our twice weekly live stream. Please follow us on Facebook at Restoring Our American Republic and check us out on YouTube at Restoring Our American Republic ROAR. Please like and share the program. And remember, if you are unwilling to govern yourself, you will be governed by tyrants. Until next time, God bless you. God bless President Donald J. Trump. And God bless America.